Hey, welcome back to Play and Trade Guitars. I'm John, that's Zach behind the camera, and this is Play and Trade Guitars, where we play it and trade it. Today I got something special for you. We had John Lauler, bass extraordinary, come to demo the P bass and J bass from Fender and Squier at 3 different price points. We looked at Squier Classic Vibe, Fender Player Series, and the Fender American Professional 2. 6 basses in one day, and it was an amazing experience for me to be behind the camera and see John bring these basses to life. I thought I'd show you a long play view of what it was like to hear John break down the components, the attributes, the features of these precision and jazz basses at all the different price points. You'll get to hear his honest and raw reactions, and I think it's really educational and really telling. Amazing experience. Whether you're a bass player or a guitar player like me, super educational, super worth watching. So I hope you enjoy this. Remember at the top, if you're in the market for any new gear, click to buy using our link. It really does support us. Any of these basses, any guitars, any gear you're buying, click to buy. You also get easy payment plans and fast free shipping. So without further ado, let's have a conversation with John Lauler, and he's going to tell you all about these incredible basses from Fender and Squier. What a treat it was to watch him do this, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Let's get to work. 1.59 inches at the nut. It's a bone nut, by the way. 0.75 inches at the first, up to 0.87 at the 12th. Pickup comes in at 10.6. 9 pounds on the nose.
You know, it's got that classic tone. I would say it's right, like tone-wise, very similar to the this series here, the player series. Yep. You know. Not much of a difference in that. It is incredibly light. Like I said, that's part of the, you know, the why it is significantly cheaper. You know, I'm interested to see, again, like the thing I'm looking for with a lot of these cheaper models is the quality of like certain like tone controls. Like, you know, sometimes it's like, even though these knobs, if they have 10 numbers on them, they really only have 3 settings.
Sure.
So I'm trying to look to see, especially with these Squiers, like how much of a tone difference I get from 0 and start to go up in like little, like half rotations. And I would say that's perfect. That's 4 settings right there. 4 distinct settings. Again, I'll do that one more time. Tone knob all the way down. And then just kind of taking quarter turns. And if you do, and I'm noticing this with each quarter turn, we have a little bit of a different tone quality. And that's a good sign with this kind of make and model. That's certainly makes it more appealing for me, and I'm sure for a lot of bass players. Again, the pickups are on the hotter side, which is not a bad thing. It gives you a little bit more control. The setup's nice. I mean, the lesson I'm learning today is it's hard to go wrong with the P bass, ladies and gentlemen. But, you know, I am definitely noticing like a difference in like make of quality. Like the neck is definitely of a cheaper make, very light. You know, I highly recommend this kind of model would be ideal for a student, like a beginner player. You know, if you got a kid who really wants to be in a rock band and play some bass, this is the bass for them for sure. You know, you can't get away with it. Hobbyists too, like, you know, I like these kind of basses because nobody knows you're playing on a Squier if you're tracking from home. So, I mean, if you can find a bass like this with this kind of good tone, you can record at home and it's like you're using GarageBand and everybody else thinks you're using Pro Tools, you know?
Well, and us guitar players too. It's like, hey, if I want to be able to pick up a P bass occasionally, you know, for a recording or something.
Oh yeah, you know, I got some cheap guitars at home too, you know. I mean, this is definitely that. You know, I would definitely say you're not gonna go wrong, you know. I don't know, it sounds good. It's a no fooling. I mean, you know, besides the obvious make differences, which you're just going to get, I'd say this is right on par with the American Player Series, like, or Mexican Player Series, excuse me. Like, it's definitely right there. What to expect from Squiers over time? They get, you know, banged up pretty easily. I would expect like more frequent maintenance cycles. You know, the I don't know if these are actually nickel or not, but just little things that you know, you should expect a little bit more maintenance. So again, like if you got a kid playing this bass, it's perfect because you don't have to worry about getting it banged up. And you know, if it does get banged up, it's not like, you know, it's a piece of jewelry. So you don't have to worry about it too much. And other than that, for the players or the hobbyists out there that are looking for some good tone, I would definitely say this is a top contender. And again, nobody's gonna know. I mean, just go like this and they're gonna go, oh, that sounds really good, you know? So, yeah, I think it sounds great. Should we try it with the track?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool?
Yeah.
I think it sounds great. You know, there's not much of a difference to me in the tone between this and the American Player Series, or Mexican Player Series, excuse me. What's the price point difference?
Well, you'd be saving $350 because it's $449 there and then $799 on the Player Series.
You know, I mean, like if I were to just close my eyes right now and do the Pepsi challenge between this and the Player Series, I don't know if I'd be able to tell the difference. You know, so it's just like the things to keep in mind are you're going to need a little bit more maintenance on these Squiers, and I would take them right into your luthier or your repair person and get the work done, and you're going to love it. You know, so I definitely think this is another bang for your buck.
1.45 inches at the nut, 0.83 inches at the first, up to 0.89 inches at the 12th. That's a narrow nut. Independent volume for the neck pickup, bridge pickup, and then tone. Bridge pickup is at 6.8, 3/4 combined, 6.5 on the neck. 8 pounds, 10 ounces, we'll call it 8.6 pounds.
like, you already got that classic tone again. And that's kind of, again, what you should expect from these Squier. If you're not getting that classic tone, you should put the bass away. Because that's really what the money you're trying to save is accepting the fact that you have a cheaper make, but with the same tone as a very expensive model. And this is what you have here. You said they're pretty popular, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I see why. You know, that lightness, there's a very big, quality of lightness in these Squiers. Again, which is another reason why I recommend them to my 12 or 13-year-old students, is because some of these basses, these 72 basses, they weigh as much as some of my kids, man. So like, this is very nice for a beginner player, particularly somebody, not just a kid, but anybody that wants more of something lighter on their shoulders that they can use over a period of time. There's a lot of dynamic range in this bass. There's a lot of highs, which is another thing you should expect from a lighter bass, especially a bass that probably has more hollow in it. It's not super solid, so you're going to get a little bit more mid and highs out of that kind of thing. And then again, like with jazz basses, I am trying to check out like what it's like down low here. And I mean, like, you got a good solid low tone. I haven't changed the settings on my amp like since we started today. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like, that's very impressive to me. Good quality. There's definitely some grit here that, if I were to accentuate like a Geddy Lee or Chris Squier thing. Like that to me is like, that's rock right there, So I mean, nobody is gonna know that you're playing a $300, how much you say?
$449. I'm
Nobody's
impressed.
Gonna know.
I mean,
that's as much as I paid, 20 years ago for my first American standard bass. I think I paid $800, and this feels a lot like that.
Wow.
So yeah, I think I maybe try it with the track.
Let's see how it sounds.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's really, really versatile. It's what I look for. There's a lot of bite to this bass. I think more than I don't know if this would be my first grab for like a jazz gig. Like, there's a lot of top end here. But it's killer for rock, man. Like when I had that distortion engaged and everything, this thing was kicking. Some Velvet Underground that... That's a great, really edgy, punchy sound.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with these Squiers, and that's what I'm always telling, my students of all ages. Like, and again, like you're saying, guitar players that just need that bass in the studio. I've actually had students come in, man, and like older students, and they will like put a piece of tape over the Squier so that no, I'm not kidding, so that they don't, nobody knows, or they'll put their tuner, like their clip-on tuner, like right on that S, and it kind of looks like Fender from far away. I've seen cats do that, man. So I mean, that's what I'm looking for. Really, is just a really good tone and an understanding that, despite me expecting, I think this kind of exceeded my expectations as far as the setup out of the box. Not so much for the P bass in this same series, but. I might want to check just the range. Yeah, like this has like a very small dynamic range with the tone. Not so much of a difference. You have like the very extreme of both. So it's almost like you have a 2-switch tone knob.
Okay.
That's how I try to look at it, is how many settings can I get out of one tone knob? This one, like there's the top. I bet we'll have a little bit if I turn it towards the middle, but you'll hear right there, not too much of a difference between. And that's surprising to me because that's almost halfway down.
Yeah.
And then again, watch, you'll get this huge drop, almost like you flipped a switch.
Yeah.
Like I said, that should be a switch, not a knob. Yeah. But again, you can't beat that. That's a great, sound for the price point, and nobody's gonna know. So, yeah.
So in comparing the Classic Vibe Squier to the Player series, how much of it do you think is quality of components, and how much of it do you think having that Fender name on the headstock has to do with it?
I definitely say there's a difference in the quality of the make. You can tell right off the bat here, like these are, it's just a different setup, less time put into the overall construction of the bass. It's like the little things like the frets here, like some of them are kind of like on the verge of, like I might take a file to some of those frets to make sure it's nice and smooth and playable. Mm-hmm. You can definitely feel there's a sharpness to that. And that's just a quality of make thing. Again, like I keep saying with these cheaper models, like, you're going to save money in the long run, but the smart thing to do is get it out the shop, take it right to your luthier, get the setup work done. They're going to know exactly what to do, and you're never going to regret it. So I definitely think the biggest difference between these two, the Player and the Squier, is just the overall make. Mm-hmm. But in terms of tone, I feel like you're getting a very similar tone balance between the two. If anything, the Squier has especially the jazz, has a lot more of an edge to it. I find myself like just wanting to play rock all day with this bass. And there's a lot of high-end presence too, which, as you saw me playing like earlier, like some of those harmonics. That's nice, There's a lot of high-end there. So I mean, I would say they're on par with one another. I think what it would come down to is the quality of the make, whether or not that's important to you. Mm-hmm. If it's not, this is your bass all day for sure. And I would definitely say this is my first recommendation for any beginner bass student is a Squier P bass or a Squier J bass, like all day. Because you know, if the kid puts the instrument down in 5 years, you're gonna have it for 50. You know what I mean? So I mean, the thing's good. But definitely
Player P bass, nut
you can beat it
1.62
up and you
inches.
won't feel bad.
First fret at 0.81 inches, up to 0.89 at the 12th. Pickup is 10.6. Exactly 9 pounds.
So like the first thing I'll say is, like, you know, like I got my 72P here, and I mean, if you look at the comparison of the two, it's almost like the same shape. You know, if you put one in front of the other like that, it's the same cut. This is the thing I'm talking about. It's the same blueprint, you know, it's the same model essentially, just, you know, made today versus in 1972. So I mean, like, really what you're looking for once you get past that is the way the bass feels and everything, you know. And then, I mean, just like without even playing it, there's the balance I'm talking about, you know, which we didn't experience with the American Professional Series.
Right.
You know, so I mean, like, this is a good example of a well-spent $800, you know. I'm always telling my students that, like, to get this, if they want that kind of, you know, $2,000 quality, but with a more practical price point. That's a good example. I mean, still kind of the same thing. Like, you got more power coming out of these. Just the pickups are a little bit hotter. That solid wood maple neck. Really clear, well balanced. Not much, you know, the action looks great. All I'm doing right there is I'm checking to see, this is kind of like something one of my luthiers taught me a while ago. But if you put your finger here on the first fret and then like pinky or something there on that last fret, and you're just looking for the distance between the string and the neck. And if there's about a credit card's worth, then you're in the right place.
Just a little bit of relief in the neck then.
Yeah, I always think about it like that credit card width. And I mean, to get that out of the box, I mean, that's pretty impressive. As far as the action, like, it feels good. I might personally lower it just a tiny bit, but I mean, I don't know where they shipped it from Mexico, that's right. I mean, if this got all the way to Mexico in this condition, that's not that bad at all. I'd say, like, this is a impressive, like, you know, tribute to that old school feel of the bass. You know, looks can be deceiving, price points can be deceiving. You know, the Fender thing is, again, like, you put the name American on it and they can charge you $1,000 more. But you're getting essentially, like I said, the same exact bass made with the same exact cuts, just with cheaper parts. Unlike the American Professional Series, I can definitely tell you that this body has some air in it. It's a much lighter body. It maybe is leaning a tad bit on the neck heavy side, but not really. It's well balanced. You know, it's definitely a heavy neck though. But that's, again, a big difference in those more, or the more affordable models, is the type of wood. You know, again, like this, they try to distract you with the quality of the neck. And, you know, this is probably like a composite body. It doesn't feel like it's made of just solid wood, you know. But again, like, sounds great. I mean,
how about the neck shape? How does it compare? Do you not notice it?
No, I notice it. You know, like, it's standard American. It reminds me a lot of like the 90s American, you know, standard series. I have one of those at home. It's a little bit thicker, and it's a little bit thicker or thinner here width-wise. Thickness though, it's a little bit thinner for sure. But it feels good. It's got that maple juiciness to it. Just like get the see what it sounds like. There's a lot of power there. Yeah, I mean, like that, it's a good sounding bass. There's not, you know, like I said.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
I think, are we finding some winners in the player series here?
I think so. I think the player series, to me, if I had to A-B the player to the American, I'd say I'd prefer out the box, the player series here. Again, it's like Fender, you know, sometimes they want to get a little fancy when they shouldn't. And this is a good example of like what I consider a great quality Fender, just no ifs, ands, or buts, 2 knobs, 1 pickup, and just well made. You know, this bass will get you really far, and you know, yeah.
Great, let's hear it behind the track.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I like these, man. These are a little fun, you know. Look, man. Nobody else is gonna know it's $800, and that's the important thing. So, you know, yeah, I definitely like this bass. It's a good one.
I like the fire coming from it too. Like you said, a little bit hotter output, it seems like. And
yeah, you know, again, like those things, like particularly if you're playing live, and when you do have a bass that's just passive electronics, those are really important, you know. I wouldn't be such in a hurry to change the pickups in a bass like this. I'd want to play it for a little while and kind of see where it's at.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and that's a thing too of like that vintage, you know, Fenders, like they had hotter pickups, like much hotter. So, you know, if you're looking for that vintage feel, you know, like I had a lesson with Carol Kay, and she talked about how like for all those recordings that she's on, her volume knob is turned down like a quarter of the way.
Wow.
You know, that's how hot those basses were, you know. So I think like, you know, and that's cool because you can have a little bit more control over your dynamic range without the need of a pedal, specifically with the P basses with one volume knob. You don't need a volume pedal, you know. If you have a nice, you know, pronounced sound, you can kind of get away with a little bit of a boost right here. So that's really important for me. Yeah, so definitely
Fantastic.
Player Series is a winner, man, for sure.
Nut is 1.51 inches. First fret 0.81 inches, up to 0.88 at the 12th. Bridge is 6.7, combined 3/4, 6.5 in neck. Player Jazz, 8 pounds, 13 ounces. We'll call it 8.8 pounds.
So like right away, like you notice there's a lot more in these pickups. This is the same settings that I had for the previous American Professional series. And I'm getting a lot more out of these pickups
Oh, interesting.
than the American Professional pickups. That's something you definitely want to look out for. But these are definitely a little bit hotter. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just something to make note of. You know, it's like Mexican models are like Fender's best known secret. It's like, you know, really, there's solid basses, man. You know, Oteil Burbridge, when he first joined the Allman Brothers, he was like a 5 and 6 string player, and he went out and bought a Mexican jazz bass after he made the audition and played like the first 4 years on all their tours with just this kind of jazz bass, you know. And I mean, that's really saying something in the studio and everything. So to me, like, I actually think this tone is great, and it's a winner, you know. That's a good sounding jazz bass right there. Sounds like a different bass. You know, when you have that, like, when you have a little bit more power coming out of the pickups like that, there's a lot more response with all the effects that you're going to use. That's really important when I'm shopping for jazz basses, especially because I'm going to use them with usually a lot more effects. So I'm really conscious about, you know, how much is coming out of the pickups in terms of for the tracking for the pedals. And like right here, like I've got a lot of firepower. It's a fun little bass.
Yeah.
You know?
I can hear you connecting with it right away, and I hear what you're talking about. It's got that fiery voice to it. A lot of
I'm
character.
surprised. I'm surprised. You know, and that's, I'm not surprised at the same time. You know, it's just like there's a little bit of a dip in the neck. Like, again, it's like you're gonna get an adjustment with every bass you buy out of the box, but it's important to make note of these kind of things. And what I try to look for is, you know, is the neck straight? Are all the parts in working order? Especially when you get with these more affordable series, I feel like, you know, what the difference is, you know, they're not handmade, they're assembly line made, and you do have to put a little bit more effort into them to get them kind of like up to par. And I tend to look out for just like pretty big, you know, noticeable things, like if the neck's twisted, if like the bolts aren't, you know, I've had a couple of these where one of the bolts has been loose or something like that. So it's just like simple stuff like that, making sure that, you know, your tuning pegs all work just fine. You know, these basses, you know, as you get down into the cheaper models, like they're just made with cheaper parts, but they're all the same blueprints and stuff like that, and they're made from the same cuts essentially. It's just made with cheaper parts. So, it is a maple neck. It's a 2-piece maple neck though that they tried to make look like one. So you gotta like, you know, it makes a difference. But again, like it sounds great. I think you got a lot of bang for your buck here, you know.
Great.
Want to try it with the track?
Yeah, let's do the track. I think you like that one, huh?
Yeah, it's nice. You know, it's always a pleasant surprise to know that you don't have to spend $2,000 to get a good sounding bass.
Yeah.
I think what's more important when you're shopping at this price point is understanding that you are dealing with an assembly line model. So, you know, depending on what number bass this was that day, you might be dealing with a more efficient make just based on the way it was run in the assembly line. So I think that, like, this is what to look for. Does it feel good right out of the box, you know, especially with these more affordable models? Because, I mean, if something's drastically wrong with the instrument, like, you're not going to get it fixed no matter how hard you try. So I think this is a really good example of a nice factory-made, like, assembly line bass that was just at the right moment at the right time, and everything feels good.
Nut 1.63 inches. First fret 0.8 inches, up to a 12th fret of 1 inch. Contoured heel and satin finish on the back of the neck. Pickup is 10.3, 9 pounds 8 ounces, so 9.5 pounds.
I really like that. You know, it's got that classic P bass feel. So, I mean, like, there's not really much you have to do except just turn the sucker up and turn the tone down just a tiny bit, and you got that really nice warm sound. So that's that true Fender tone, you know, and I think a lot of times that's what we're after, is that tone. So, I mean, my amp is set pretty much dead even right now. There's not a lot of support in one dynamic range, so that's pretty much just the bass, what you're hearing, you know.
How does the neck shape compare to your 72?
It's very similar. You know, it's more of a, like, the neck shape on this bass is definitely more of an old school model. You know, it's thicker, more like a baseball bat-ish kind of feel, which is like, that's a late 60s, early 70s So it's nice to have that, more meat and potatoes and the feel of it. So yeah, I think it sounds great, especially if that's right out of the box.
Maybe throw a little dirt on it.
Yeah. Accentuating the highs there, like the pickup's good. It's a nice sounding pickup. This is what you should expect, is just like that good Fender sound, no ifs and ands or buts about it. So it's good to see that Fender's still doing their thing, because that's what this feels very genuine to like a classic P bass. There's not, and it's light. It's kind of it's definitely more of a body heavy. For sure, there's a lot less balance there.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch you do that.
So that takes effect when you wear the bass. That's what you're mainly looking for. But it sounds great.
Sounds great.
It's a fun little bass.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think? Feels okay?
Yeah, I'm surprised at how easy it is to play right out of the box, And I mean, all I would want is just a little bit of an intonation adjustment, and that's about it. It's a really good blend of modern parts and like classic feel, I would say.
Pro 2 Jazz bass, nut is 1.5 inches. First fret 0.75 inches, up to a 12th fret of 0.86 inches. Both the American Professional 2 offered in rosewood for the fretboard. Player Series has a Powell ferrule option in place of rosewood. Bridge pickup is 6/8, 3/4 combined. Neck is 6/7. Pro 2 Jazz comes in at 9 pounds 4 ounces, so 9.25 pounds. And so as we move over to the jazz bass, John, do you have any just quick thoughts from a discussion of the P bass versus jazz bass?
The main thing I look for is like I want a good feel and a well-balanced jazz bass. with a little bit more definition in the mids that you don't get with the P bass. Main thing I look for is just balance in the jazz bass. You know, the thing is, like, the P bass has like a very defined tone that is less versatile than the jazz bass. So I'm listening to see if I can get a pseudo P bass tone, and then also like kind of where I can go from there. Like, can I get that burpy Jocko thing? Now, unlike the P that we saw in this same series, like, I do feel like I am going to need to make a couple of adjustments to my tone overall to get a little bit more definition where I need it out of that low end. And then, like, yeah, I mean, action's definitely a little bit higher on this one. So out of the box, I would say definitely want to bring the action down a bit. I wonder how the neck's looking. It's looking okay. But overall, really good. I'm surprised that that is the full tone knob. That's the tone knob all the way up. So that's actually a pretty warm sound for a jazz bass.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, yeah, I mean, like, that's that. Now we're getting somewhere. That's what I'm talking about with balance. So yeah, this is a good balance, you know. Got a lot of definition up there. Jocko. Typically on a jazz bass, I find myself wanting to like take it to gigs where I'm soloing more like fusion settings. So I am paying attention to that area of the bass a little bit more. You know, the versatility is there.
Will you tell us what you're playing through, John?
Yeah, I'm playing through a dark glass micro tubes. These are some bad little dudes here. And then this is my first time actually playing out of a dark glass speaker cabinet too, and you know, I really like it. You know, like I said, versatility is king, and for me, like, dark glass is a particularly well like balanced amp. You know, I find myself even with these tone settings, like, I'm barely adjusting, you know, from their you know, just standard 0. And I'm really impressed with how much of that natural sound of the bass comes out of this instrument, you know, this amp. Geezer Butler. Yeah, that sounds really good. I definitely like the way this bass sounds, like, more for that like rock tone, you know. It has a really nice tone to it. I definitely think that's, to me, a little bit more of what makes the difference with the jazz bass versus the P is just all that like mid and high pops. And
so for a driven rock tone, you think maybe the jazz
definitely
takes
the
it there?
jazz, yeah, definitely I would say like the jazz bass is more of that rock tone.
Cool.
You know, that, and again, like, that's what's nice about a good jazz bass is, you know, you can get that great rock tone, but you can also go in and you know, you can get that warmness. Not as much warmness as the P, but definitely getting close, you know.
Cool. Well, should we hear it behind the track here?
Sure.
I could hear the distinct voice coming out of this one, though, especially like you said, if you're playing a lot more lead lines or kind of jumping out of the mix a little bit more.
Exactly. Like I think like, you know, there's a real big advantage for getting a lot of that fusion-y stuff. Like when I think jazz bass, I think Jocko, but also I think, you know, jazz bass, I think Geezer Butler, Chris Squier and stuff like that. So, you know, there's a lot of versatility here, and again, like, you can't go wrong with a good jazz bass, and this is definitely one of them. Out of the box, you know, definitely some action issues. The neck is perfectly straight and it's of good quality. I would say this feels, you know, like your standard jazz bass neck. You know, it's not like 80s, 90s, you know, going forward from there. So it feels like just your everyday jazz bass. And I think like the biggest difference, again, when you get to these American models is the quality of a lot of what's going on inside, the electronics and stuff like that. So, you know, that's what you're looking for in terms of balance. This one, again, same exact problem, just a little bit body heavy. I will say it's much lighter than I would have expected from an American series. This feels like a Mexican or a jazz in terms of the weight, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I definitely see this as a bass I'd take with me on a lot of the, you know, jobbing stuff that I do or TV stuff. Like this would be the bass. So you know, it being on my shoulders for a 4-hour gig or a private event or a wedding or something, like it being a little bit lighter isn't so bad. So, you know, yeah, I think it feels great.
Great. Yeah. Well, the Jazz is at $17.99. The P bass is at $17.49. They come with a hard shell case. Now we can move over to the Player Series, which is priced at $7.99. So figure about $1,000 less. These are made in Mexico, and we can start to take a look and get a sense of the feel difference in those. So we'll move over to that series.
Sounds good.
All right, John, I can't thank you enough. I have the immense privilege of playing with Mr. John Lauler here, and I'll tell you what, a bad man right here on bass. Incredible tones, and it was really amazing. Actually, what an education just to sit here on the other side of the camera and learn about the jazz bass, the P bass, and see them in action in the Squier Classic Vibe series, the Fender Player series, and the Fender American Professional 2 series. Now that we've reached the end, the $1 million question, we're going to ask John his favorite. So John, why don't you tell me, well, we'll go jazz and precision bass. So why don't we start with jazz bass and you tell us your favorite jazz pick?
You know, my favorite jazz pick might surprise the non-bass players, but a lot of bass players know that, like, if you get a good Squier, you know, this Squier Classic Vibe series, I was just really impressed with the fact that you've got a classic tone inside half the price. Yep. You know, you're definitely going to have to spend some time getting it set up properly. But I just feel like you got the best bang for your buck here. And like I've been saying all night, like, you know, nobody's going to know. So I was very impressed with just the overall punch that this thing packs, especially at that price point.
Well, listening to you play it, I thought it sounded fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
And then how about a winner for the P bass?
The P bass, again, I kind of went with the middle of the road. This time I went with the Player Series P bass, not just because of that sweet paint job, mainly because of just I was really impressed with how it just felt a lot like my 72 bass. I mean, more so than the Professional series. I just like that there's no messing around with this bass. It's very straight and to the point, no fancy anything, but you've got a great tone, and it felt really great to play this bass.
Fantastic. If you had to give a letter grade to each of the 3 series, Squier Classic Vibe, Fender Player, and Fender American Professional 2, what grade would you give them?
I would definitely give the, we'll start from the highest to lowest, sure. I guess. So with the Professional series, I would say about a B+.
Okay.
I was expecting a little bit more punch from that series. You know, those kind of basses to me, like, you know, where you get what the difference is the expensiveness in the parts. You know, there's a lot of detailed parts here. You know, these expensive tuner knobs. You've got the through the back strings, you know, and that stuff is going to help with the longevity of the bass's overall performance and things like keeping the bass in tune. But I thought they lacked a little bit in the overall tone, you know, and that's one of those things that especially with a Fender, I'm looking for that Fender tone, you know.
Yeah, it makes you sit up and go, come on, Fender.
Yeah. So I'd say overall B+ or even like a B average for me. I'm a Fender person. I really like Fender. Yeah. But so I wouldn't. Maybe if I were somebody else, it'd be a C.
Sure.
But for the American, the next series down, the Player series, I definitely say an A.
Yeah.
You know, I again, like, it didn't feel much different than my vintage P bass, and that's what that's what I really liked. You know, and you know, it felt good to play, and that's the important thing. I didn't feel like I had to, you know, work around anything.
Yeah.
So the Player series definitely gets an A.
Great.
The Squiers, the what is it? The
Classic Vibe. Yeah.
Yes. The Classic Vibe series to me, same like B minus. The reason I say that is because, you know, they have great tone, but I know that bass is not going to be the same bass 6 months from now once you get through a winter and a spring. Even though out of the box that those basses are great, I'm going to be taking it in and maybe replacing the pickups, getting some work done to the neck and stuff like that. So even though you're at a $500 price point, you said, which is good if you're giving that bass to a student or something like that, but for me or professional use, you're going to spend another $200, maybe more if you're getting pickups, just to get that pace in working order. So to me, even though that's a $500 price point, you're going to pay as much for the Player series.
Sure.
You know, to get it to where I would want it to be.
Sure.
So that's where I give it that B minus.
Sure. But so I think then it sounds like probably the winner overall, would you say, is the Fender Player series?
Player series, for sure.
It's really enlightening. I mean, sitting back and watching you play was really eye-opening and ear-opening to listen to that, to listen to these basses in action. And I guess, don't let me let you off the hook with the amp then. This amp, tell us one more time which amp it is and give us a letter grade on the amp.
So this is a dark glass. This is called the Vintage Microtube series. And I give them an A++ all day.
That's great.
I'm a bass player that, you know, I spend a lot of time on both upright and electric. And so, you know, I'm looking for a well-versed amp that's super well balanced. and gives me a very clean tone. I know it's at the true 0, and that's something that Dark Glass does particularly well. Oftentimes, especially when I'm playing a bass that I know sounds good unplugged, you know, I just feel like I'm getting that tone no matter what.
Sure.
You know, so very rarely do I set these bass amps. You know, this is just slightly above the 0 setting, which is just in that middle there. You'll feel it with that click.
Yeah.
And I mean, almost all my settings are zeroed out for the whole time. No complaints. To me, that's a good amp. You know, I love them, and I'm happy. You know, Dark Glass endorsement, baby. No, not yet, but maybe someday. But yeah, I definitely enjoy these amps a lot.
Fantastic. Well, drop a comment and show some love for John. We're going to be getting John involved on a lot more upcoming bass demos. So you can also drop a comment and let us know what bass gear you want to see John review. We're super excited to have him on our team for doing bass reviews, and lots more to come. So John, once again, let me say thank you.
Thank you
For being part of Team Play and Trade today. And don't worry, we gave him a t-shirt, so he can wear that next time.
Play and trade all day, baby.
That's right. But remember, you can buy any of the gear that was reviewed in this video. Just click to buy new gear using our link. And make sure you hit subscribe and like, and we'll see you on the next Play and Trade Guitars video and the next bass demo with John Lauler. John, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.